Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going on a deep dive.
Ooh, a deep dive.
Yeah, into a pivotal moment in history,
Yeah.
the return of the Jewish people from Babylonian exile.
Right.
Now you've shared some excerpts from the Book of Ezra with us
Why?
to help unpack the historical context,
Great.
the key players,
Uh-huh.
and really the impact of this incredible period of rebuilding.
Yeah.
And we're also going to touch on the Cyrus cylinder,
Yeah.
which is a fascinating archaeological find that kind of adds another layer to this story.
It really adds a lot to it.
It does.
It's a remarkable chapter
It really is.
of resilience, faith, and cultural identity.
It is.
And it all hinges on this single proclamation
Right.
that reverberated across centuries.
It's hard to imagine a Persian king playing such a crucial role in Jewish history.
It's wild.
It is. So to really grasp the significance of this decree, let's set the stage.
Okay.
Take us back to Judah around 586 BC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was the situation like?
Picture this. Jerusalem has fallen.
Oh, wow.
The once magnificent temple lies in ruins,
Oh, no.
and many of the Jewish people have been forcibly uprooted
Wow.
from their homeland and deported to Babylon.
Really?
It was a period of profound loss and uncertainty,
Yeah.
a forced separation from everything they held sacred.
It's almost unfathomable, the scale of that displacement.
It's huge.
Then decades later,
Yeah?
Cyrus the Great enters the scene.
There you go.
He conquers Babylon in 539 BC
Uh-huh.
and issues a decree that frankly seems too good to be true.
Real.
He essentially tells the exiled Jews,
Okay.
go back to Jerusalem,
Wow.
rebuild your temple,
Really?
and here's some financial support to get you started.
That's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
what's going on here?
And here's where the Cyrus cylinder comes in.
Right.
This ancient clay cylinder inscribed with Cyrus's own words
Wow.
corroborates the biblical account and sheds light on his motivation.
Okay.
It suggests that Cyrus had a policy of repatriating displaced peoples, allowing them to rebuild their shrines.
Wow.
A remarkably tolerant approach for a ruler of that era.
Yeah, you don't see that a lot back then.
Not at all.
No.
It's a brilliant political strategy, isn't it?
It is.
Gaining the loyalty of a significant population
Makes sense.
and fostering stability in a newly conquered territory.
Smart.
But the decree goes beyond mere political maneuvering.
Oh, really?
It actually acknowledges the God of Israel.
Huh.
Cyrus states that he was appointed by the Lord, the God of heaven, to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem.
I mean, this isn't just permission.
It's not.
It's an endorsement of their faith.
It is.
Can you imagine the impact that had on the exiled community?
It must have felt like a miracle.
Oh, yeah?
Let's actually hear a portion of this historic decree as recorded in Ezra.
Okay.
Chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. Thus says King Cyrus of Persia, "The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has appointed me to build him a house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Whoever is among you of all his people, may his God be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and rebuild the house of the Lord, the God of Israel. He is the God who is in Jerusalem. And let each survivor, in whatever place he sojourns, be assisted by the men of his place with silver and gold, with goods and with beasts, besides freewill offerings for the house of God that is in Jerusalem."
Wow. Just hearing those words
I know.
must have been both exhilarating and overwhelming.
I bet.
Decades of longing,
Yeah,
of yearning for their homeland,
right.
suddenly given tangible hope.
Yeah,
It's the beginning of the end of their exile
it is.
and the start of a new chapter in Jewish history.
A new chapter, but certainly not without its challenges.
Right.
So the return is authorized.
Uh-huh.
The resources are provided.
Yeah.
What happens next? Do they just pack their bags and head straight for Jerusalem?
Well, not quite. There's a period of preparation.
Okay.
Ezra describes leaders, priests, and Levites making arrangements,
Okay.
gathering provisions,
Yeah.
and being assisted by their neighbors. It's a community effort,
Yeah.
a shared commitment
Yeah.
to this monumental undertaking.
And they meticulously cataloged the sacred temple vessels that were returned by Cyrus.
Yeah.
It's incredible the detail Ezra provides.
I know.
We're talking gold basins, silver utensils, bowls. They even kept an inventory.
Right. It speaks to the importance
It does.
they placed on these items in the rebuilding of the temple.
Yeah.
These weren't just objects.
Right.
They were symbols of their faith,
Yeah.
their connection to their past, and their hope for the future.
It's like they were piecing together their identity.
Yeah.
Both literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting that Cyrus appoints a man named Sheshbazzar
Uh-huh.
to lead this group of returning exiles.
Sheshbazzar,
Yeah.
a figure shrouded in some mystery. nonetheless played a pivotal role
Yeah.
in those early stages of the return.
Yes.
He's the one entrusted with overseeing the journey and the initial rebuilding efforts.
So this massive group of exiles,
Yeah.
led by Sheshbazzar, and carrying their precious cargo of sacred vessels and renewed hope,
Right.
embarks on the long and arduous journey back to Jerusalem.
Wow, what a journey.
What awaits them upon their arrival?
Well, their arrival in Jerusalem marks the beginning of a new chapter,
Okay.
but it wasn't a seamless transition.
Oh.
They faced new challenges and
God.
unexpected obstacles as they sought to rebuild their lives and their temple in a land that had changed significantly in their absence.
No.
I mean, imagine returning to a homeland you haven't seen in decades.
Oh, wow.
The landscape has changed, new people have settled in, and there's this sense of unfamiliarity,
Yeah.
even though it's the land of your ancestors.
Right.
That's the reality the returning exiles face.
It must have been both exhilarating and disorienting.
It must have been.
So what were their immediate priorities upon arriving in Jerusalem? Did they start laying the foundation for the new temple right away?
Their first act was actually to rebuild the altar.
Okay.
This was a powerful symbol of their renewed commitment to their faith.
Uh-huh.
They needed to reestablish their connection with God,
Right.
to create a space for worship and sacrifice after years of being away.
It's a poignant reminder that their return was about more than just reclaiming a physical space. It was about restoring their spiritual center.
Exactly. And they even celebrated the festival of Sukkot, the festival of temporary shelters,
Right.
which takes on a whole new layer of meaning in this context.
Yeah.
It acknowledges their journey, the fragility of their dwellings in exile, and the hope for a more permanent home in Jerusalem.
There's a beautiful symmetry there.
There is.
A connection between their past experiences and their present aspirations.
It's really beautiful.
But as you mentioned earlier, this new chapter wasn't without its challenges.
It wasn't.
What were some of the obstacles they encountered?
Well, one significant challenge came from the people who had settled in the region during the exile,
Okay.
the Samaritans.
Okay. The Samaritans.
They offered to help with the rebuilding of the temple.
Really?
It seems like a gesture of good faith, but the Jewish leaders declined their offer.
Why would they refuse help, especially considering the enormity of the task before them?
It's a complex issue.
Okay.
The Jewish leaders were concerned about maintaining the purity of their worship and their cultural identity.
Right.
They had spent decades in exile,
Yeah.
holding on to their traditions and beliefs,
Uh-huh.
and they were wary of any outside influence that might compromise their unique identity.
So it's not just about bricks and mortar.
It's not.
It's about preserving the very essence of their faith and their community.
Precisely, and unfortunately, this refusal sparked tensions with the local residents.
Oh, no.
What started as an offer of assistance escalated into opposition. The Samaritans and other local groups began to actively discourage the rebuilding efforts.
Really?
They hired advisors to create bureaucratic roadblocks and even went as far as lodging official complaints with the Persian authorities.
That's quite a shift from extending a hand to actively trying to undermine the project.
It is.
What were the specific accusations leveled against the Jews?
They were accused of being rebellious,
Mm-hmm.
of potentially undermining the stability of the region,
Uh-huh.
and even of posing a threat to the empire's tax revenue.
So now it's not just a local dispute.
Right.
It's become a political issue that could jeopardize the entire rebuilding project.
Exactly.
And this opposition really intensifies during the reigns of later Persian kings,
Yes.
particularly during the reign of Artaxerxes.
Uh-huh.
These complaints eventually lead to a halt in the rebuilding work.
Yeah, it seems like their hopes are dashed.
Oh,
Their dreams of restoring the temple put on indefinite hold.
it's a heartbreaking setback after all they've endured.
It is.
But the story doesn't end there, does it?
No, it doesn't. And this is where the narrative takes a fascinating turn.
Okay.
We move from a period of stalled progress and disillusionment
Mm-hmm.
to a time of renewed hope and determination, thanks in part to the emergence of two prophets,
Okay.
Haggai and Zechariah.
Prophets. That
Yeah.
sounds like a dramatic twist. What role do they play in this saga?
They inject a much-needed dose of spiritual inspiration.
Oh.
Think of them as fiery orators,
Uh-huh.
urging the people to shake off their apathy, to rededicate themselves to the task at hand.
So they're not just predicting the future.
No.
They're actively shaping it by motivating the people to action.
Exactly. Their words rekindle the flame of hope, reminding the people of God's promises and the importance of completing the temple.
Wow.
And this renewed energy coincides with a shift in the political landscape.
Okay.
We're now in the reign of Darius,
Okay.
who succeeds Cyrus the Great.
Darius, he seems to be a pivotal figure in this story.
He is.
But even with the prophet's encouragement and a new king on the throne, there's still a major obstacle. Tatanai,
Tatanai.
the Persian governor of the region,
Right.
he's skeptical in the Jews' claims and launches an inquiry into the legality of the rebuilding project.
He does.
It's like one step forward, two steps back.
It is. But this time, the Jewish leaders have a compelling response.
Oh, okay.
They appeal to historical precedent,
Okay.
reminding Tatanai of the original decree issued by Cyrus.
Oh, smart.
They present a clear and concise account of the events,
Uh-huh.
emphasizing that they're not acting on their own accord, but following the instructions of a previous king.
They're essentially saying, check the records, we have the receipts.
Exactly.
It's a brilliant legal strategy.
It is. And Tatanai, intrigued by their claim, orders a search of the archives.
Okay.
It's like an ancient detective story, a quest to uncover the truth hidden within dusty scrolls.
I love it. And what do they find?
In a dramatic turn of events, they discover the original decree of Cyrus,
What?
safely preserved in the archives of the citadel of Ecbatana.
No.
This rediscovered document confirms everything the Jewish leaders had said.
It's a vindication, a moment of triumph. What does this rediscovered decree say?
It reiterates Cyrus's original instructions, outlining the dimensions of the temple, the funding allocated for the project, and even details about the materials to be used.
Right.
It's a blueprint for rebuilding a powerful testament to Cyrus's vision.
And how does Darius react to this discovery?
Darius, a wise and just ruler, honors the decree of his predecessor.
Good.
He not only authorizes the resumption of the building project,
Okay.
but goes a step further.
Really?
He issues a strong warning against anyone who tries to interfere with the work,
Wow.
and even allocates additional resources from the royal treasury to ensure its completion.
It's amazing how the discovery of this single document completely changes the trajectory of the story.
It's really amazing.
Darius's support is remarkable.
It is.
It's almost as if he's personally invested in seeing this temple rebuilt.
And with this renewed support, the rebuilding efforts proceed with vigor and determination.
Great.
It's a testament to the power of perseverance,
Yeah.
the importance of historical documentation, and the surprising role that a Persian king played in shaping Jewish history.
So with all obstacles cleared, the temple is finally completed.
Yes, it is. Ezra tells us that the temple is finished in the 6th year of Darius's reign,
Okay.
which would be around 516 BC.
Okay.
They hold a joyous dedication ceremony,
Yeah.
marking a new era for the Jewish people. But the story doesn't end there.
Okay.
A few decades later, another pivotal figure emerges.
Yeah.
Ezra,
Ezra.
a scribe and expert in the law of Moses,
Okay.
who arrives in Jerusalem with a very specific mission.
Ezra. His name is often associated with this period of rebuilding.
It is.
What was his mission, and how did it differ from the initial efforts led by Sheshbazzar?
Ezra's mission was more about spiritual rebuilding,
Okay.
about purifying religious practices and strengthening the Jewish community from within.
Okay.
He arrives during the reign of another Artaxerxes,
Oh.
and he's given a lot of authority by the king.
Another Artaxerxes. These Persian kings certainly like to recycle names, but this is a different Artaxerxes, right?
Yes, this is Artaxerxes,
Oh?
who ruled from about 465 to 425 BC.
Okay.
And he entrusts Ezra with a significant task.
Mm-hmm.
He even provides him with a letter,
Okay.
a sort of royal endorsement,
Uh-huh.
authorizing him to lead a group of exiles back to Jerusalem
Wow.
to investigate religious practices
Really?
and to establish courts based on Jewish law.
So it's like a second wave of return, but this time the focus is on internal reform and the revitalization of religious observance?
Exactly, and this letter from Artaxerxes is fascinating.
Okay.
It begins with a grand salutation. Artaxerxes, king of kings, to Ezra the priest, a scribe of the perfect law of the God of heaven.
Wow.
It sets the tone for Ezra's mission, emphasizing his authority and the king's support for his endeavors.
It's almost as if Artaxerxes is saying, go forth and make sure the Jewish community is living up to the ideals of its faith. But wait, if Ezra is all about religious purity, does he encounter any, let's say, less than pure practices when he arrives in Jerusalem?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it leads us to one of the most challenging and thought-provoking parts of Ezra's story.
So I've got this scholar and reformer Ezra arriving in Jerusalem with the full backing of the Persian king. What exactly does he find that's so troubling?
He discovers something that shakes him to his core. A number of the Jewish people, including some priests and Levites, have intermarried with the local populations.
Oh, wow.
they've adopted some of the customs and religious practices of their neighbors.
Oh, no.
To Ezra, this is a direct violation of God's commandments and a threat to the very identity of the Jewish people.
So it's not just rebuilding the temple, it's about rebuilding a sense of who they are as a distinct community.
Precisely. Remember, they spent decades in exile clinging to their beliefs and traditions.
Right.
Now they're back in their homeland, but facing a different kind of challenge.
Okay.
A blurring of the lines that define them.
Ezra's reaction to this is pretty dramatic, right?
Ezra is deeply distressed by what he sees.
Yeah.
The Book of Ezra tells us he tears his clothes, pulls out some of his hair, and sits down in despair, fasting and weeping before the temple.
Wow.
It's a powerful image of his grief and the gravity of the situation.
He clearly sees this intermarriage as a serious problem. What steps does he take to address it?
He doesn't hesitate. He gathers the people and delivers a passionate speech,
Okay.
reminding them of their covenant with God, the laws they're supposed to uphold, and the dangers of foreign influence.
It sounds like he's issuing a wake-up call, a plea to return to the core principles of their faith.
Yes, and to achieve that, he proposes a radical solution.
Okay.
The Jewish people must divorce their foreign wives and send them away, along with any children born from these marriages.
Wow, that's a drastic measure. It must have caused a huge rift in the community.
It did. There's a mix of reactions.
Okay.
Some people support Ezra,
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging the need to reaffirm their religious identity
Right.
and distinguish themselves from their neighbors.
Right.
Others are hesitant, torn between their loyalty to God and their love for their families.
Of course.
Ezra even faces opposition from those who believe his approach is too extreme.
This must have been an incredibly painful and divisive time. It raises so many questions about faith, identity, and belonging.
It does.
It's hard to imagine what it would have been like to be caught in the middle of this.
The Book of Ezra doesn't shy away from these complexities.
Wow.
It portrays a community grappling with an incredibly difficult decision,
Yeah.
one with no easy answers. It forces us to confront the human cost of these religious reforms.
So what ultimately happens? Do they go through with the divorces?
Ezra sets up a process to address the situation.
Okay.
He forms committees to investigate individual cases.
Uh-huh.
Over 3 months, they carefully examine genealogies and verify the marriages.
Wow.
Ultimately, a list is compiled of those who have taken foreign wives, and they agree to separate from them.
So it's not a sudden sweeping decree, but a more deliberate and organized approach with each case examined individually.
Yes, and the Book of Ezra ends with this account,
Okay.
leaving us to contemplate the long-term impact of these decisions, both on the individuals involved and on the Jewish community as a whole. It's a poignant and somewhat unsettling conclusion to a book that chronicles this remarkable period of rebuilding and renewal.
This whole deep dive has been incredible, from the exhilaration of the return to the challenges of rebuilding the political maneuvering, and then this internal struggle for religious and cultural identity. What stands out to you most from this period?
The sheer resilience of the Jewish people is awe-inspiring. Even after decades of exile, they never lost sight of their heritage, their faith, or their yearning to return to their homeland, and even in the face of internal divisions, they found ways to rebuild their temple and reassert their identity.
It really underscores the power of faith and determination to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles.
Absolutely, and it highlights the complex interplay of political power and religious conviction. Think about the role of figures like Cyrus, Darius, and Artaxerxes.
Oh, yeah.
Their decisions had a profound impact on the course of Jewish history.
And let's not forget the impact of those prophets, Haggai and Zechariah, whose words inspired the people to action. It's fascinating how their religious fervor intersects with these political machinations.
This deep dive shows how interconnected everything is. It's a story about the power of leadership, both political and religious, and about the challenges of maintaining a sense of community and identity in a changing world.
It's a story that continues to resonate today, prompting us to reflect on our own temples.
Yes.
What foundations do we need to rebuild in our lives?
Yeah.
How do we navigate periods of uncertainty and change while holding on to what's most important to us?
Those are powerful questions for all of us to consider. The story of the return from exile isn't just ancient history. It's a timeless reflection of the human experience, with its triumphs, struggles, and enduring search for meaning and belonging.
Thank you for guiding us through this incredible journey. It's been an eye-opening exploration of a pivotal moment in history.
It's been my pleasure.